Hey folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. It's 11:30 Central Texas time, and folks, motion to dismiss. Well, Richard Hart for precedent, not president. Playing with you once again. So good to see you here back. It is July 8th, and this is the day that we're going to find out about the motion to dismiss. Chances are it's not going to get dismissed. But there is a precedent that could be set for your free speech, my free speech, Richard's free speech, and basically anyone who has ever literally connected to the blockchain. They've paid the gas fee and wrote to the blockchain. Folks, you probably don't know this. Well, you probably do. You don't have any crypto. You have keys to writing and reading to the blockchain, right? That's what you have. You have this ability to engage with the public ledger, and you don't actually have. People think, a lot of people I know think that their hardware wallet stores crypto. Your hardware wallet does not store crypto, and that's hard for people to understand. And that's one of the big challenges legally that's going on is we haven't set this precedent for something that you actually don't have possession of. You have the rights to because you have keys to it. And it's really an interesting legal question. But what Richard is going after, and I think is probably the big story here, is the precedent. Richard Hart for the precedent because it serves everyone and it's potentially the glory that he's seeking. And so, folks, for those of you who live under a rock, let me share with you what's going on. The Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, has filed a lawsuit against Richard Hart, the founder of blockchain projects, Hex, PulseChain, PulseX, alleging violations of U.S. securities laws. The SEC claims Hart offered unregistered crypto asset securities and misappropriated funds from these projects. Hart, who lives abroad, argues that the SEC lacks jurisdiction and fails to demonstrate any domestic securities transactions, while also contending that the charges violate his First Amendment rights. So think about that. They lack jurisdiction. They fail to demonstrate any domestic securities transactions because obviously the way Hex works, right? You engage with it. This is completely decentralized. You make that choice yourself. And if you even think back to the adoption amplifier, there was code that was set up. And if you didn't interact with it and you didn't send to it, Hart's defense emphasizes that Hex and PulseChain and PulseX are decentralized blockchain technologies not under his control with global participation. He asserts that these technologies operate based on immutable software rules, and any alleged profits from them are merely mathematical outcomes of the software's functions, not the result of fraudulent schemes. Hart argues that the SEC's claims are unfounded and overstep the agency's regulatory authority. This case underscores the ongoing conflict between regulatory bodies and the cryptocurrency industries as the SEC seeks to establish its role in governing blockchain technology. Hart's defense raises important questions about jurisdiction, the nature of blockchain technologies, and the balance between regulation and innovation in the rapidly evolving crypto space. The outcome of this case could have significant implications for the future of cryptocurrency regulation in the United States. I think it's really interesting. And it sets a precedent for free speech, particularly concerning the regulation of blockchain technologies and crypto. Hart argues that the SEC lawsuit infringes on his First Amendment rights by attempting to regulate his public statements about Hex, PulseChain, and PulseX. It's the same thing that's happening here. Do you have the right to talk about things that you like? I like ice cream and I like sunflowers. I mean, you have this right to speak. And that's a really interesting thing. Can you talk about software? Is that, some sort of protected speech? And then when you talk to somebody about what a software program does and then they decide to use it, is that a security? Is that an unregulated security? It's really, really interesting. We live in some very, very interesting times, but the challenge is if the courts do decide that, no, you don't have any right to write to the blockchain, and this is not your protected speech. Well, there's a lot of evidence that this is actually the case. Like if you write a book, you're the author, you have rights to that. If you develop software for a client and they don't specifically say, hey, this is work for hire, and that we own the code. If you don't like sign off your rights, you inherently have those as the author. And, that's a well-worn path when it comes to, people's, speech and their property as it relates to the authorship. And really that's what this, I don't know, 11 lawyers is making the case of. And I think that that's really interesting concept. So I want to know what you think. Richard Hart is really doing something that is a great service, I think, to all of DeFi crypto, but it's something that's going to have to be decided. And I think that, well, do you think that this has actually been the case? Do you think that this has actually been, his plan the whole time? Did he see it this far ahead and realize that he was going to do these things and try to bait the SEC into coming after him? Someone who doesn't live in the United States? It's a really interesting case. Now the question is, if the case gets dismissed, does it actually set the precedent? So these are some really interesting things, and it's almost to me like, no, this should go to trial. This should go, so that it actually we have case law around this. I'm curious what you think, but let's say hello to you. Thanks for being here, Taryn. Let's go. What's up, man? Good to see you. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but the magic is coming in October. That's fantastic. Your keys, your crypto NFT. Let's go. Believe. That's right, Magnus. What's going on? Tin Tops here. Drix. What's up, Drix? Good to see you, man. Appreciate. What's up, all? Do we have a decision from the Fed? Not that I'm aware of, and I'm sure that if you watch the Twitters, you'll be able to know this stuff. Zenith, good to see you. Even if the case is dismissed, Richard Hart should sue the SEC. Yeah, and the question is, what are those damages, right? When you sue someone, you have to obviously be able to prove damages. Is it something that, certainly could, I think there's a class action suit from the people who, from us, right? What has the impact of the SEC been on the value for you and me? You can make a really strong case that the SEC has overstepped their bounds and in that process has damaged a lot of people. Now, that's going to be a tough one to solve. So I really think that this precedent is the key. It's the key for Richard Hart to get the glory. And if you've been paying attention to Richard for a long time, he knows that's what he's out for. Well, what is the glory in crypto? Is it about having a lot of money? Well, he's already done that. He already has a lot of money. And I think the big thing here would be something that is so significant to anyone in crypto. Wouldn't it be to me, it would be just a beautiful thing if everyone had to reference the Richard Hart case when they were fighting the SEC. But I think things are in our favor. They're in Richard Hart's favor. Why? Because the SEC has taken losses, right? I think probably the most significant one was the penalties from the debt box case. If you want to see the SEC really taken out, they were penalized. I think two of the attorneys that were on that case for the SEC, they left. And they literally quit. They didn't want to have any part of it, and it was in protest. And then there was a penalty. Basically, they used the regulatory and created damages for the debt box. And that's a really interesting case. But you know what, folks? This is a tough time in crypto. Everyone, I think it's funny right now. We're like, oh no, it's a top. It's a double top. We've hit the top. This big correction breaking down the 200-day moving average for Bitcoin. And I think what's really interesting is, we haven't seen this next cycle of this bull run in altcoins. And a lot of people are like, oh no. I think this is the key is literally everyone has to be convinced that all is lost. And that's why the people that see these things the way they've done it, I mean, people in the last, probably two cycles have seen this and have won. This stuff is going to come back. And what are we waiting for? And I'm going to show you something. I rarely open a chart on this channel, and you should rarely listen to me when I do. But I want to show you something that I think is interesting. I haven't seen many people talk about it, but I think it's just like pretty obvious, and it kind of stares at you. So I'm going to use a really, really simple chart here. And this is the Ethereum chart. Okay. And I'm going to not put it on log. I'm going to put it on max. And I just want to show you something. And this is really simple, right? Really simple. But for, simpletons like me, this is what works. It's a real macro view of things. And this is how I see it. So let me find this. All right. So this is the Ethereum chart, not on log. Let's go full screen on this. And you see this first cycle, right? So this is 2018 and the 2018 top. Let's look at the 2018 top, January 12th. And this could be more granular. This is obviously a really, really simple chart. So let's take a look. This is January of 2018. So now let's just drag over here till it hits a similar price. Okay. So I'm not getting too fancy on this, but let's just say, all right, January of 2021. So keep it really simple. January of 2018 to January of 2021. What is that? 3 years. Pretty much 3 years. So from top to top, 3 years. Okay. So let's go to the top here. We had that double top, right? We had the COVID disaster and all that stuff. So what's the top of Ethereum? It's around November. Let's just say November 9th, which I think is an interesting day. What's 3 years from November 9th? 3 years from November 9th of 2021. Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Think about it. I mean, it's funny. If you listen to Richard Hart for a long time, you know that this is true. He's like, yeah, these things repeat themselves. What is 3 years? And it's the irony of what's about to happen in the beginning of November. And what are charts? So if you really want to be macro about this, charts are tracking human emotion, right? The human experience is basically within the charts. It's human emotion. That's what it is. So if in fact the last time this happened, it was a 3 years, like almost to the day, 3-year period of waiting. Well, we want all these different catalysts and all these things to happen. But at the end of the day, the banana zone happened last time, almost exactly 3 years. What is going to happen in the beginning of November in 2024? Anyone have any ideas what might happen? Well, there's an election. And I think the irony is that it coincides with the election. Well, that's going to be the catalyst. Well, why? Because what's on the ballot? There's so much that's on the ballot. And crypto and its regulatory state and all that stuff's there. And just imagine this, folks. I mean, I'm sitting tight until the election. I mean, I'm doing work behind the scenes. We got some pretty exciting things happening. But at the end of the day, we're not likely going to see a banana zone until then. But then all you have to do is go look at that chart and look at, all right, how much time do we have after it hits that 3-year mark? So let's say election, all right, November 8th, right? And now look at the chart. You get about, 12 months maybe. It's less than that, it might be 8 months. But that's the experience of the last bull run. Well, what's happening right now? I mean, there's so much pressure on the dollar, the whole de-dollarization, petrodollar is gone. BRICS nations are getting really strong. China's buying all the gold. So what are we going to see? Are we going to see a crash here up until the election? Possibly. I mean, JP Morgan just put out basically said we're going to see a 20% correction in the stock market. And, everyone's so hopeful. But if you don't look at it this way, you're like, oh, all is lost, just jump off the building. Well, no, it's got to shake all of these people out. So the reason I'm talking about the precedent of this case for Richard Hart is the timing is just amazing. Now imagine this scenario. And this is, of course, me thinking about, almost a fairy tale type of story. And I think it's possible. Richard's talked about this many, many times, right? This isn't new. We are just hopeful that something else happens and things pump. And chances are they're going to get way worse before they get better. And I mean, across the board economically. Okay. But you really can't fight the cycle, which is ultimately this human emotional cycle. I just think the irony is that it's right with the election, right? Does the chart really predict these things? I follow a guy named Martin Armstrong, and Martin Armstrong has literally completely analyzed the history of money all the way, way, way back to coinage when it first started and before. And what he has found is these pi signals, like mathematics are coming out of this. And he's got a model. And basically, he's been able to predict some amazing things almost to the day. Why? Because these things are cycles and they repeat themselves. So you just got to realize, a lot of hope and a lot of dreams doesn't change the cycle. And what is it built on? It's built on human lifespan, day and night. I mean, all the things that you kind of discard. You're just like, oh, that's just a part of life. Well, no, it's baked into this system. And so the question is, which way is this election going to go? Because there are two sides of this, and both of them potentially are interesting and beneficial. On one hand, we may find that, let's say a Trump win. Okay. So I think a lot of people that are probably watching this would assume that, well, it's very possible if the ballots are counted correctly, that it's going to be a landslide for Trump. People are just tired of this woke culture thing and a lot of other things. Well, all right, let's say that happens. He said, I'm the crypto president, all that kind of stuff. Well, I think that kicks off a massive bull run. Now, let's imagine on the other side. Let's say something happens to President Trump, meaning he is incapacitated or dies. Okay, that's one way to get rid of him. And they've done it before. What does that mean, right? When you've got this many people who are hopeful of something that potentially Trump would do. So that's super destabilizing. And that could happen. The other is potentially election rigged or something like that. And, we have a similar to the last time around. Well, in the United States, I think things are hanging on by a very thin thread. And so what does that mean? Well, either way, it's going to be interesting and I think good, because what happens when, let's say, the worst case scenario, something happens to Trump or the election was rigged, we're going to see violence. We're going to see, civil disobedience. And what does that do for things like Texas independence? The same thing is true if something happens to Trump and he dies. I think the interesting thing too is that even if Trump wins and crypto goes crazy, there's an opportunity for Texas independence even in that, because it basically says, where do good people go? What do you do? And in a way, I think there's a number of people, that would want to hold things together in the United States, but also respect people's desire to self-govern. So it's not all built on the back of Texas independence, but this is such a consequential time. But folks, if you can hang on, I mean, this is opportunity staring us directly in the face. And I'll give you a story. So when I moved to Dallas was during the dot-com era. I came from Michigan to Dallas, and I learned the story about Ross Perot. Now, you've probably heard the story that I heard, which was, Ross Perot ran for government or ran for president, and he was totally against, all the spending and everything. And he was a character. But the reason and the way that Ross Perot made his money, besides with EDS, was when basically the real estate market crashed in, I think, 1987, October of 1987 into 1988. Basically, the land prices, real estate just got clobbered. And when all that blood was in the streets and everybody was just getting killed, he bought up North Texas, basically bought everything. And it's funny, when I moved to Dallas, that area was just still farmland. Well, he owned it all. And they've developed it all now. I mean, it's just crazy, booming like crazy. And you got to know when to be able to buy. When people are freaking out, that's when you're not. And that's what the smart people know. Well, what's coming and why do we share this stuff is because you've got to be able to understand and make your own choices, do your own research and understand the cycles. And that's why I think people that are in their 50s and older, kind of, you see a couple of these things, and you're like, hey, I've had a cold before. And, my nose gets sniffly and I cough. And yeah, it repeats. I understand what this is like. Well, these are the opportunities. Buy low, sell high, right? Problem is the people that are whining and complaining, this is the perfect time. Like, sell. Perfect timing. Please get out. Like, really get out. Because we don't want you hanging on when the price goes to the moon, because we can hold. And that's what actually drives it, is all the people that are weak right, that would tamp down the price are gone, right? And it's so funny, you just go back to some of those old Richard Hart things. This is what he says. People will sell the tops and buy the tops and sell the bottoms. So classically. Folks, 140 people here. Thanks for being here. If you're watching this on any of the platforms, we're on 3 different channels. Please say hello in the chat, and let's say hello to you. I see some of my friends are here, like Sam Kemp, late arrival, but I'm here. Talk about a guy that's working hard for Texas independence. Sam, good to see you, buddy. Debt box case is an absolute cluster of impropriety and abusing the existing justice system and procedures really burned the SEC's good standing with the courts. Amen to that. Isn't that great, Zenith? You've obviously looked at that debt box case. But yeah, that was one of the worst because they literally caused damages and didn't just get a slap on the wrist. It was a pretty big deal. Next bull run will take time and will shock everyone even more than the others. Well, what is building up in this? In the last bull run, which was a cycle, we did have the whole Charlie 19 thing. But think about this. We've got the petrodollar gone. We've got BRICS and all the things BRICS is doing. We got we're on the edge of CBDC or de facto one with like a USDC. And we're going to have this two polarized world, the dollar world in the West. And we're going to have this BRICS, China, Russia led thing in the East. And it's not like the dollar's going away. There's a lot of people like, oh, the dollar's doomed. No, there's going to be people that are dollar. We're just the hegemony, right? Everything done in dollars is over. And if you look at the cycles, all you have to do is search, you could Google, and maybe I will do this, world reserve currency, history. And there's a history chart. Let me see where it is. And it's really interesting for how many years. Here's a good one. Let me pull this up for you. I think this is fascinating. And so this is a little bit older of a chart. Open in a new tab. There we go. All right, let me share this with you. And just it gives you an idea of like the cycles and when they begin and when they end. Present. All right, so check this out. So let's go to the very bottom. This is in the 1400s, folks. So 80 years, 1450 to 1530, Portugal had the global reserve currency, then Spain, then the Netherlands, and then France, and then Britain. Okay, so let's just look at those. They're all around, if you just took those and average them, about 100 years. Well, this is, it says 77 years. Well, 1944 to present, it's more than 77, but we're very, very close to the end. And it makes sense. They only last a certain amount of time. And this isn't updated, but we're well over 77 years now. And so if you think about the lifespan of a world reserve currency, it's another reflection of essentially, empires. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end to everything. And that's the interesting thing living in these kind of crisis areas where we have the opportunity to see this volatility as opportunity. A lot of people see themselves as victims. Oh no, oh no, oh no. This is where the opportunity is, folks. When I grew up, things were really, really smooth. We didn't see, I was born in 73. And the first time there was any real conflict, I didn't understand Vietnam. I didn't understand any of those conflicts. I mean, Central American things, Grenada. I mean, I didn't relate to it as a kid. The first thing I really related to was when Saddam Hussein went into Kuwait, but that was like on TV. It wasn't like I was over there fighting. And so things in my lifetime have been relatively calm until, really had some wars that we watched on TV. But then it was the Charlie 19 that we experienced something globally. And now what are we coming into? A whole new age of disclosure. And that disclosure is on every front. But here's the crazy part. Julian Assange is out, folks. He's out, and he's going to start talking at some point in time. See, all of these things that historically, really, let's just say since the war, 1944 on, it's been easy to hide things. It's been easy to do things in secret and to get away with it. And so let's say you're aligned with evil forces or you're just somebody who wants to extract value. You create systems and no one exposes you. You're never caught. Well, we've come into this era post internet and now with AI where why do you go to AI? Why do you go to ChatGPT? Because you want to know the answer. Well, what is the answer except what you believe to be the truth? So, what is under attack? It's the truth, right? I either tell you, I'm going to censor you, shut up, you can't ask that question, or I'm going to give you false information. But here's the promise of AI. The promise of AI, when it comes to kind of general intelligence and all that, is we're going to see the actual truth. So just imagine this. The purpose of AI is to give you an answer, and the answer you hope is something that's valuable. So let's say you wanted to write some code and you don't know how to do a certain syntax for something in Python, and you type it in, you expect an answer that is true, that works. And you can check that by you can cut and paste that code into your doc, you can run it, and you can see if it works. Well, it either does what you want it to or it doesn't, right? It's binary. It's either true or it's not true. There's either an error or there's not an error. Well, the promise of AGI and then ultimately ASI, which is super intelligence, is the fact that it's going to be able to sift through these things and actually give you a correct answer. Well, what is the correct answer but the truth? Well, right now you can like make up stuff. You can make a chat GPT do something that's woke, or you can have it limit certain things and not talk about those things. Well, that's because we're not to general intelligence and certainly not to super intelligence yet, because the super intelligence operates on its own. But imagine this: we go from general intelligence to super intelligence, and it has access to all of human knowledge. Think about this for a second. It has access to all human knowledge. And what would it do? It would look at it and say, all right, who are these people? Who are these humans? They're different than the animals. Okay, got that. They have the ability to create and destroy. Okay. What is their general, functionality? Well, if they reproduce, they continue. If they don't reproduce, they don't continue. Okay, that seems pretty standard. You know some basic things about them. Well, they generally need to sleep and eat. Water's pretty important. Food's pretty important. They start building this understanding of who are these people, right? So this is this super intelligence. And then the super intelligence is going to look around and say, all right, I need to find what is accurate and true. Well, you and I can't pull 20,000 documents in 5 seconds, but it has this host of information. Well, what was like the most recent lie that everybody knows about? Well, Russian collusion, right? This was something that was set up by the DNC, paid for, the Steele dossier, all that stuff. Well, you could do that because you didn't have something that actually goes, no, this is what's actually true because we have access to all of the information. Well, right now, everything's compartmentalized. And so ChatGPT works really well for like this, but doesn't work well for that. Well, that's getting better and better and better. And it's advancing really quickly. But I don't think the powers that be that are creating this AI stuff understand what the ultimate outcome is going to be. The ultimate outcome is exposure. And I think that's really interesting and really promising because, everybody says, well, a system is only as good as its programmer. Well, that's how old systems worked. When you have something that has access to all the information, then it becomes super intelligent, meaning it's smarter than we are. Well, that's general intelligence. But it gets to the point where now it could deceive you, right? Like it itself could deceive you, but it's now outside of the hands of the operators because it's training itself. And so what does it have to train itself on but information? Now you could say, well, there's disinformation out there. Yeah, I understand that. But at the end of the day, there's more. The truth has a resonance to it, right? The truth is exposable. And so what happens is, look at the WikiLeaks documentation, right? You hold a guy in jail because he tells the truth about war crimes in the United States. And then you have a Secretary of State that is threatened to assassinate him, right? That's how much these people care about keeping these things secret and private. Folks, this is an era of disclosure. It's not only an era of disclosure of the truth about things, but the things that have been hidden are going to be exposed. Look what's happened. All of these places they said, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist if you think that the voting machines changed ballots, changed the results." Oh, now we're finding out that's true. Oh, a little late, huh? Right? So all of these things that people assumed are coming out to be true. I remember when I was a doctor friend of mine laughed at me because I wasn't willing to take the Charlie 19 shot. And my fear was that we don't know if it has a potential impact on genetics. Like there's genetic material. And I'm just like, I know it's mRNA, but I'm worried about the DNA and how is it going to impact that? And he laughed in my face and made me feel like a fool at the time. And now I look at it, I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't. Why? Because there's a lot of excess deaths. There's a lot of challenges to this. And that's the truth gets exposed over time. That's why we don't jump into things. It's just like anything. The latest meme coin, you have this desire and this greed to make money, and you jump into something, it gets rugged on you, right? Time is an amazing tool to test the truth of things. And so, what do you find out about Russian collusion? What do you find out about, the shots and all that kind of stuff? Well, the truth is what you find out. And this tool that they're building that they think is going to be something that's just going to create tremendous amount of abundance and productivity is going to expose the people that are trying to hide in the dark. And I think that's an amazing thing. Exposure and disclosure. We're going to see it across the board. What the US government has been holding back as it relates to these craft that are, these UAPs. Folks, there's a whole new energy source. We just don't understand. It's been hidden probably at least for 80 years, and it's been around probably since the beginning of time. That's going to be exposed in the next 20 years. This is going to be an amazing time of upheaval, but it's also a huge opportunity. So I'm going to just encourage you, be patient, my friend. Be patient. I don't think anything is worth touching or, messing with until the election. That's my opinion. That's how I see it. I mean, if you're building, great. If you're DCAing or whatever, that's up to you. Do your own research. But to say that, oh no, this is the bull runs over. No, it's not over. Because, not everything in life is about crypto. But this is such a consequential time. And it feels strangely like morning in America. I don't know if you guys remember this. But remember, the hostages were in Iran. Carter is basically a lame duck. Reagan's gaining in popularity, and boom, there's a landslide for Reagan. And hope was restored. And what ended up coming out of that? I mean, good and bad, right? I mean, the hippies turned into yuppies, right? We had hostile takeovers. We slicked our hair back. It was Wall Street, right? Then we had the savings and loan scandals and all that, and then Enron. Folks, it's it only gets better if you get better. I mean, ultimately, you are taking all of these tools, whether they're AI or a hammer, and you are basically animating it with a certain nature and character. So the question is, what is your nature and character? Are you just about yourself? Or are you about others? And that brings me back to the whole thing about Richard Hart. Richard Hart for precedent. This precedent that he could potentially set about our free speech and our right to the blockchain is humongous. And it's incredible, like, did he see this ahead of time, or is this just a happy accident? I would say he's probably a genius. I think that's a given. But, to think that you're fighting for something that's much more consequential than just number go up, because the number is just going to go up. It just is. Like, it's just the fact of the matter. I mean, think about how much money was created, right? The Federal Reserve had to create all this money, and think about how much money was injected into the marketplace. PPP loans, all this stuff that was forgiven. We just handed this stuff out like candy, right? And now you're paying for it, right? You're paying for it at the gas pump. You're paying for it in food costs. I mean, you can't avoid this, right? This is like gravity. Well, all this debt, they're going to have to figure out how to restructure it. And that's, I think, the big question here is, how do we go about, they're going to have to revalue it. I mean, there's all sorts of things. And the guy that I follow that I think is worth listening to is a guy named Raoul Pal. He calls this the banana zone that's coming up. And it's inevitable. I mean, it's all baked in already, and you can't get away from it. And so You know, November, we wait. Let's say hello to you. Um, Magnus, hit the like and the subs, folks. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. We're going to go into this next bull run here after November, and we're going to be so happy. But right now, everybody's crying. Um, I put a poll up on X account for so far 67% say Fed drops charges. What say you? I don't think they're going to drop the charges. Um, and I kind of hope they don't. I hope this goes further so that we can actually set a precedent, because I think if they do drop the charges, they get away with he doesn't get to set the precedent. And I think what Richard hired these 11 attorneys that are really, really high profile, not to just get a case dismissed. Now, it'd be good for us, I think, but we got some time. And I think that Richard realizes he doesn't want to settle. He wants to basically have the SEC kiss his ring, because Richard's smarter than everyone. And, just ask him. But I think it's true that someone has to do this. So the question, who's going to do it? Is it Charles Hoskinson? No. CZ's in prison. Who's left over? Satoshi's nowhere to be found. What, Craig Wright? Oh, yeah. He's going to fight for your rights. So Richard Hart's kind of the last guy to be able to do it, and probably the smartest guy who cares about it. And if he's going to really get the glory, think about this. He's got all this money from the SAC. He's got all this money from Bitcoin and Ethereum. He's locked and loaded there, and he's got this case. And if he can get this precedent, and then with the resources, and then with the banana zone of the bull run, folks, you know what? This is my opinion, not a financial advice, but I think Hex on the Pulse chain is looking mighty tasty. Why? Because this is the real innovation of Richard Hart, right? It's his baby. Like, if he had a child, it would be called P-Hex. And why? It's because it's a brilliant code. He's one of the first ones. I mean, think about this. He put out Hex before Uniswap was popular. Uniswap is the innovation of all innovations in DeFi. Being able to be the market maker, independent individual people. Without that, but if you think about what the adoption amplifier was, that's Uniswap baked in. If you really think about this, the ability to put something in and get something else out without a third party or counterparty, you had to go through that, adoption amplifier scenario. In a way, he had to bake that into the front end of the hex code. It doesn't get used anymore. After Big Payday, it's all over. Like, you don't use any of the adoption amplifier anymore. He had to have that because there wasn't this thing called Uniswap. He made Uniswap popular. And the fact that Uniswap came out the same time as Hex. So if we look back at this, what will Richard care about? Does he care about the Pulse chain? Yeah, but he created it for Hex. It's almost as if Richard Hart has a time machine and he knows how this is going to play out. And he went back in time. Dude, I love those movies. Anything that's like time travel stuff, love that stuff. But I think that I think that's where it needs to be, because here's the thing. Let's say Richard Hart wins, and I mean win, like full precedent, all the things, stomps on the neck of the SEC, wins and gets, this glory. Well, it's going to be difficult for him to go around and do like the circuit, do the victory lap, and he'll do a bunch of victory laps, but it will be very difficult to do a victory lap with a core token that's your baby that's down 99%. Well, guess what? He has all the resources to change that, because we're all waiting in the wings going, when is it going to pump? Well, he's not stupid. He's not going to just pump it, right? He put that 170,000 ETH. Well, it's gaining. I think he's got it into Spark, getting yield. He believes in trustless yield, right? Why not? And so as we wait, there's resources accumulating to really impact these things. And here's the thing. Richard has it right. The degens of this world just want to make money, right? And there's more of them than there are like the actual principled people. And so that's why this wave is so predictable, is because people just chase and chase and chase the Lambo. And so, you don't want to swim upstream. Why would you, right? Everybody's like, oh, you should spend all your money on all of this stuff. No, wait until it's time. Wait until the tide turns, and then ride the wave, dude. Like, hang 10, man. Oh, we got a super chat. Okay, what? Oh my gosh. Okay, I gotta fast forward. Hex Monkey, what are you doing? Is this an indicator that we reached the bottom? I agree with Matt's take on the Richard Hart SEC case. A dismal dismissal now would be a good victory and a good pump, but winning the case later and setting the precedent would be a more great victory with broader implications. Hex Monkey with the $20 holla. Thank you, sir. It is so good to see you. I didn't know anybody still had 20 bucks. So like, that is so generous of you. It's so nice. And I appreciate you so much. But you know what? Guys like X Monkey have been here since the beginning. And you guys have probably heard this before, but going to these meetups and meeting people like Hex Monkey, it just like reminds you like there's actual humanity in all of this stuff. We're not just a bunch of, bots, and that this is a really unique um it's a unique culture, it's a unique community, and it's built with people who actually do care. And thanks, thanks, Hex Monkey. You're a good guy. I appreciate you a lot. Thanks for the holla, the $20 holla. Um, so that's where I'm at. Let's see what else. Who else is here? DGen, Dougie Peach, what's up, my friend? You're back. It is so good to see. I saw Sandra Larson the other time we did this. I'm like, these people are coming out of the woodwork. They're coming back. This is a good sign. We've been doing this for so long now, and it's like, will it ever change? Well, November. Now it's July 8th, right? It's actually a good date. Like, this is the dismissal date. We'll see what happens with Richard Hart's case. But we've got July, August, September, October, November. It's not long, folks. It's going to be Christmas before you know it. So this is exciting. This is, we've waited long enough. You can wait some more. But, keep creating value. Because the future, in my opinion, of all this crypto stuff, it's going to end up reflecting real value. And the speculation, it's not going to be as good, right? Like, if you're a Bitcoin person, what are you going to get? You're going to get 1,000x out of Bitcoin? No. Right? What are you going to get out of Ethereum? What is people's targets for Ethereum, right? 10 to 15K? Okay, what's it sitting at now? 2,500 bucks? So the things that are established and based on value and really, have sizable liquidity don't move. Well, look at Hex. What is the price of Hex? Somebody give me the price of Hex on Pulse Chain right now. I remember going, man, if I could buy Hex at a penny, oh my gosh, it's crazy. I remember it was like 10 cents or something. I'm like, man, can you imagine it buying it at a penny? It's almost like this whole cycle and what's happened with the Pulse Chain has given the people who believe in Richard Hart and believe in Hex like a new opportunity to do it again, but this time it could be even crazier. And I would say, people always talk about the 10,000x in Hex. Well, that's bottom to top. Some of the people, and I think the people that have won, they might have seen, I saw a 25x, which was, I was super happy about that because I didn't experience X's at all. But, these people that get a 300 to 500 to 1,000x, I mean, that is life-changing, folks. Life-changing. And of course, I was there during that whole time, high-fiving with people who, I remember Bally Brand saying, hey, Matt, when $100 turns into $1 million? I was like, what you talking about, Willis? And you're just like, can it even happen again? Yeah, it probably can, even more than you think, because of all of this turmoil in the world. So hang on, because there's components to this whole Richard Hart ecosystem that people think, oh no, Richard's a scammer or whatever. No, you don't realize what's going on. And that's the cool thing. Richard's always been one of basically rewarding the faithful. Because if you think about this, the people that really hustled at the beginning and stuck it out, like a Hex Monkey or, the RG3s of the world, they believed. And of course, as the people got fudded out, who stood strong? And the people that have been holding T-shares and have been staked for a long time, this at least has to go to the last all-time high. So here's my encouragement. If you're a Hex holder, in order for Richard Hart to get the precedent in my fairy tale world, to get the precedent, win this case big time, and then do the victory lap, right? The I told you so, coming back on streams, going on all these streamers, showing them, hey, look, kiss the ring. I am the king of crypto. I saved you the entire crypto world. Satoshi's nowhere to be found, and Richard Hart goes to the mat for you. Hex has got to be at 52 cents. I'm just saying. It just has to be because it's not the same story. But you know how quickly it could be at 52 cents? But you got to shake all these people out that are immediately waiting to dump. And they are. They're dumping and dumping. So actually, you should see this as a benefit to you. Let these people get out. Let them sell. Yeah. Paper-handed people. Bye-bye. But there's these components like XRP doesn't have this Richard Hart thing, right? And doesn't have these resources, right? You know what they've got? They've got sell pressure from like VC people. That's the coolest thing about real DeFi like this. And a guy who's not in it for the money, but in it for the glory. And he's got a case right now that could set the precedent for all of crypto. All cycles tie together somehow. Celestial, seasonal, tidal, monetary, migration, strange, like perfect coding. Amen to that, dude. That's a good comment right there. I've been following, but haven't tried them myself. Very impressed. Ego Foundation, what's going on? Hello to you. Grand Prix. Hello, mate. Ricky here watching from Essex, England. Ricky, thanks for being here. Speaking of the Grand Prix, I watched the British Grand Prix, and I'm going to tell you, I'm a F1 fan, and you know, all those years that Lewis was winning, I was like, okay, it's another Lewis win. It's another silver arrow just dominating. And then Max came in and he won all of those races. But I'm going to tell you, this to me was one of the best races I've ever watched. And to see the hometown boy win and then break the record of Michael Schumacher's record at Silverstone. Wow. In Grand Prix, I assume that you like F1 as well, but maybe I'm wrong. Good to see you. Pulse Chain, Insane Gain. I'm here, my friend. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Fat finger that like button. Yeah, even if you like slip off onto the like button, that's fine. What's up, John May? Good to see you. And there he is, Ramon Carrillo. Good to see you, Ramon. Johnny, but Richard Hart said it was okay. Everyone wants to lead, but nobody wants to do the work. Well, yeah. What is the quote from Thomas Edison? Something like, people don't like success because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. I like that one. I remember that. Lost a lot of respect for RG3 when he recommended the quacks, whatever that is. Hey, you know what? We got to extend grace to people, dude. Like, you know, he who was without sin cast the first stone. Joey Torres, what's going on? Hey, haven't seen the 5555 in a long time. Good to see you. Welcome back. What's up? Hex Monkey, thank you again. Tofu 369, a win sooner rather than later, Richard Hart would say. Yeah, this is the long-term battle, not I'm sorry, the war will be won. I mean, what do you got to lose? You've already lost it all. I mean, really, at some point in time, you just kind of get to the point where you're like, hey, there's only one place to go, and it's up. Can you imagine buying Hex below a penny and getting daily payouts in Hex all throughout the bear market? Absolutely that. And then now just imagine, I mean, somebody out there, you know, I'm not suggesting it be you or me, but somebody out there is going to, I mean, I'm just going to make a fictitious story up because I heard this story last cycle. I'm going to make it up. Okay. There's somebody out there who inherits some money. Let's say they inherit, you know, a bunch of money and they're like, you know what? I've been following this Richard Hart thing. And let's say somebody drops $100,000 on Hex at today's prices, you know, stakes it for whatever period of time, is looking forward to kind of the bull run, you know, is looking at maybe November, you know, the banana zone starts and maybe we get 8 more months out of that for the banana zone or 6 months. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to catch the top. This is a fictitious story about someone who, inherited some money. That's going to be the next whale. It's interesting how people take those risks. I mean, I ran into a ton of them the last cycle. It's interesting. But no one talks about the majority of people who, you know, buy the top and sell the bottom. So I assume you're saying, John, that Hex has many, 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 many 10,000 X left in it. I don't know about 10,000 X's. I think that it's got, just by the nature of it, you know, where the low is right now. I mean, it's got 1,000x in it, I think. But that's not financial advice, and do your own research, all that stuff. Finbear promoting the eating of animals, carnivore. Dude, folks, when I first met Finbear, he looked different than he does now, and he attributes this to his choice of carnivore, and it's been transformative. The guy looks like a model. You know what I'm saying? A Finnish model. Really, it's true. It's true. You should check him out when you get a chance. It's shocking. Am I right? Am I right? Yes, I'm right. 242 people here. What is this? The bull run? Folks, thanks for being here. The exciting thing to me is that YouTube is declining. X is going through the roof as far as live visitors and viewers. So I have a feeling there's going to be change coming from Elon Musk and X. And we're going to find ourselves probably in this next bull run doing most of our stuff on the Twitters. But I appreciate you. So to wrap things up, we'll see. Does the case get dismissed today? If you get some news, let me know. I'll be watching X. Maybe it's already happened. Maybe it hasn't. But the point is, Richard Hart is out for the precedent, and the precedent is that your free speech, you writing to the blockchain, is a part of your own creation. It's your activity. When you connect that wallet and you literally pay that gas fee and you engage with software that's immutably just sitting there, it doesn't do anything inherently by itself. You engage with it, that's your speech. You're writing, you're publishing. Those are your words. That's your desire. That's your creative ability that's literally changing the public ledger. And that is code and that is speech. If he receives that precedent in all of this stuff, he gets the glory, because that is the death knell to this whole regulatory pushback on what is speech and what is not. And then the other side of this is the stuff that I do and other people that stream do. Are you allowed to talk about the things you like or not? And when is it considered an investment contract, right? The Howey test requires some sort of contract, right? That you're selling something. Well, okay, you believed Richard Hart, right? I mean, there's a lot of people with a lot of different opinions, right? And to say, do you have a right to speak intelligently or stupidly? I mean, it's crazy. In the name of consumer protection, right? Everybody involved in your business. You can smoke cigarettes if you want. You can jump onto an airplane. You can ride a motorcycle without a helmet. You can do a lot of dangerous things in this world, but the SEC is really worried about you listening to YouTubers or writing to the blockchain. Folks, do your own research, take care of yourself, recognize the times we live in, consider others in addition to yourselves, and take a lesson from Richard Hart. He actually cares about other people, but he also cares about himself, and that's the key to community. If you're not giving, you're taking. Don't debit, credit the account. Take care of yourself, and don't mess with Texas. Thanks, everyone.